Hello guys, we are here continuing with the second part of our reaction video. Let's just continue. In the last part, check out, it will be here in the right corner if you haven't seen it. We saw 3 marshals, we are going to see the rest in this part. So, we will jump right in. I don't want this part to take too long, but I'm going to continue teaching you everything I know more. In this channel you are going to learn something. I seriously do that. Other reaction channels, you just go to the source and bump. It's way better because they don't teach you anything. They say, oh, I know about history, but they don't teach. They just say, oh, I don't know. I don't know much about this period, but they never know much about any period. So I have seen every video of this channel on the Napoleonic Wars. We will be covering those videos, but for now we will continue here. So like, subscribe, comment, share videos with your friends, and check the link in the description. I have amazing history books. Let's start.
23. Marshal Kellerman.
Oh, he was at Valmy. Valmy was a very important battle in the French Revolutionary Wars that destroyed the Prussian armies there.
Kellerman was another honorary. Kellerman was another honorary marshal, the oldest at 68, and famed throughout France as the saviour of the revolution. A career soldier from a middle-class background, he'd seen distinguished service as a cavalry officer in the 7 Years' War. At the beginning of the Revolutionary Wars, he was a general, commanding a frontier army at the moment of greatest crisis, when it seemed foreign invasion was about to stamp out the revolution and restore the ancien regime. But at Valmy, in September 1792, Kellerman's Army of the Centre stood its ground, and with a ferocious artillery barrage, persuaded the Prussian army to withdraw. Valmy was not a stunning tactical victory, but it was a turning point of history that saved the infant French Republic. When the revolution took a more radical turn, even a war hero like Kellerman became suspected of royalist links, and spent a year in prison under the threat of the guillotine.
Because, like, after the king was guillotined, it was around that point, which was around 1792, it started what was called a period of terror, where they killed everybody who they thought it was a royalist and against revolutionary values.
Acquitted and restored to command, he was poised to launch a new offensive in Italy, when he was sidelined, first by General Scherer, then in favour of a rising new talent, General Bonaparte. Kellerman later specialised in army administration and training, a role he continued to perform under Napoleon, whilst also entering politics and serving as President of the Senate. His son, General François-Étienne Kellerman, followed in his father's footsteps, serving as one of Napoleon's best cavalry commanders. 22.
I can see why they chose Grouchy. I told you this in the last part. You can see my provisions. I told Grouchy would be one of the worst. Why? Because Waterloo. Because the campaign that led to Waterloo. He was the main reason Napoleon lost. There was many reasons. Okay, there was a lot of reasons. There were 2 main reasons. First, because Grouchy just took away 30,000 men of Napoleon's army, and he didn't do his job. And the other was a bit more complex, was about the spies that Louis XVIII left infiltrated in the government when Napoleon came back. You can see that video in History March. Like, search in YouTube, History March, real reason why Napoleon lost, and you will see it.
2. Marshal Grouchy.
general to be promoted to Marshal that Napoleon promoted to Marshal.
When Napoleon returned from his first exile in 1815, he created one last Marshal for the upcoming campaign, Marshal Grouchy. Although now infamous for failing to march to Napoleon's aid during the Battle of Waterloo, up to that moment Grouchy had had a long and distinguished military career. An aristocrat who embraced the French Revolution, Grouchy served with distinction throughout the Revolutionary Wars, fighting counter-revolutionaries in the Vendée and serving in Italy, where he was wounded and captured at the Battle of Novi. Under the Empire, Grouchy excelled as commander of a dragoon division in Marshal Murat's cavalry reserve. He was praised by the Emperor for his part in the Great French Charge at Eylau, played an important role buying time for Napoleon at Friedland.
Yes, I remember this from their episode where they talked about Friedland, I remember.
And expertly covered the French right wing at Wagram. For the invasion of Russia, he commanded 3rd Cavalry Corps and was wounded at Borodino. He survived the horrors of the retreat, but was left so exhausted it took him several months to recover.
I believe it.
He returned for Napoleon's 1814 campaign in France, and was wounded twice more. Grouchy was made a marshal at the start of the 100 Days campaign, and commanded Napoleon's right wing at Ligny. After the battle was won, he was ordered to pursue the retreating Prussians to prevent them joining up with Wellington's Anglo-Allied army. 2 days later, as the Battle of Waterloo raged 10 miles to the west, Grouchy made the fateful decision to follow his written orders rather than march to join Napoleon, and has been widely blamed for the French Emperor's defeat ever since. Grouchy's vilification is not wholly fair, not least because Napoleon rarely encouraged his marshals to show initiative, and often flew into rages if they deviated from his written orders. Nor should one blunder obscure the distinguished record of one of the Grande Armée's best cavalry generals.
One big blunder.
Grouchy fled to America after Napoleon's defeat to escape royalist reprisals, but was pardoned and returned to France in 1820. 21.
Marshal Moncey. A curiosity about Marshal Moncey. He was asked to try to be the judge in the trial of Marshal Ney. He ended up being executed, but Marshal Moncey refused to be the judge of such trial.
Marshal Moncey.
Emperor Napoleon, what do you have to say about Marshal Moncey? He was an honest man. Bravo, bravo.
Moncey ran away from home to join the army at the age of 15. After 20 years of uneventful service, he'd risen no higher than the rank of captain. But then came the French Revolution. Most French officers were aristocrats, who, if they did not actively oppose the revolution, were nevertheless regarded as politically suspect. The result was that 3/4 of them either fled the country or were dismissed from the army. Moncey, a middle-class officer with no strong political views, reaped the benefit with meteoric promotion. By 1794, General Moncey was leading the army of the Western Pyrenees to victory over the Spanish, on what was admittedly a relative backwater of the Revolutionary Wars. In 1797, he was dismissed for alleged royalist sympathies, but reinstated in time to support Napoleon's coup of 18 Brumaire. By his own admission, Moncey was a sensitive officer, honest, honourable, but lacking a ruthless streak or iron will to succeed. Napoleon was aware of his limitations as a general, but made him a marshal.
His limitations.
In 1804, as part of his emphasis on continuity between the Republic and his new empire. Moncey was appointed Inspector General of the Gendarmerie, France's militarized police force, and spent most of the rest of his career commanding reserve troops. He only held one field command again. In light of his victorious record against the Spanish, he was given command of a corps for the 1808 invasion of Spain, operating in the south of the country with mixed success. In 1809 he was replaced by General Junot and returned to France.
Junot sucked, so yeah, I don't know what Napoleon saw in Junot. He sucked. I don't know why if you go to our part 1, they will say that Junot was one of the best generals who did not reach the marshal rank. I don't think so. I'm Portuguese. I know that Junot blunders here. He blundered in Russia like very bad. He failed to trap the Russian army. It was a simple task, just cross the river and continue moving. He crossed the river and he stopped.
Moncey's finest hour came in the dying days of the Empire, leading the National Guard of Paris in a courageous but doomed defense of the French capital. In 1815, the restored King of France, Louis XVIII, ordered Marshal Moncey to preside at the trial of Marshal Ney for
What did I tell you? This guy was really fat.
Treason. Moncey regarded Ney as a hero for having saved so many French lives in Russia, and refused, declaring, "If I am not allowed to save my country nor my own life, then at least I will save my honor." After a short spell in prison, Moncey was allowed to resume his military career, becoming governor of Les Invalides, in which role he presided over the repatriation of Napoleon's remains from St. Helena in 1840. At the end of the ceremony, the 86-year-old Marshal Moncey announced, "And now, let us go home to die." 20.
Okay.
Marshal
Marshal
Poniatowski.
He died. Marshal Poniatowski died. He died at Leipzig, trying to cross the river and fighting until the end. His horse stumbled in the rusty slopes of the river and he fell and drowned. He was a Polish marshal. I think he was the only non-French marshal. I'm not sure, but I think so. Yeah, he was Polish.
Prince Józef Poniatowski was the King of Poland's nephew, but his military career began as a cavalry officer in the Austrian army, even serving as aide-de-camp to Emperor Józef II himself. In 1789 he transferred to the Polish army with the rank of Major General, but could not save Poland from partition by its rapacious neighbours, Russia, Prussia and Austria. By 1795, Poland had vanished from the map, swallowed up by its rivals. After Napoleon's defeat of Prussia in 1806, Poniatowski decided loyal service to the French Emperor was the best way to win Poland's restoration.
And they managed to do it for a little bit.
Although he never fully trusted Napoleon's aims. Sombre, serious and brave, Poniatowski proved an able commander of Duchy of Warsaw forces in Napoleon's service. When war broke out with Austria in 1809, while Napoleon advanced on Vienna, Poniatowski waged a brilliant supporting campaign against a larger Austrian army in Galicia. For the invasion of Russia, he commanded the Polish 5th Corps. He and his troops distinguished themselves first at Smolensk and again at Borodino, leading the attack on the right wing. Poniatowski and his corps performed heroically throughout the campaign.
If there's any polls, I have this doubt. If there's any polls in the video, can you tell me why did the Polish forces wear these squared heads. That's the best I can describe them. Squared, like they have the shape of a square on the top. If there's any polls in the comments, please tell me.
Motivated in part by their old animosity towards Russia. But by the end of the retreat, 5th Corps had been virtually destroyed. Poniatowski remained loyal to Napoleon, even though the disaster in Russia paved the way for the Russian reoccupation of Poland. He rejoined Napoleon in Germany in 1813 and was given command of the Polish 8th Corps. On the eve of the Battle of Leipzig, he was made a marshal by Napoleon in record.
I didn't know this. In the eve of the Battle of Leipzig, he was made a marshal. And as you can see that, killed in action, age 50, Leipzig, as I told you.
Recognition of his service and to inspire his Polish troops. Poniatowski was the only non-Frenchman to receive this honour.
I told you he was the only one.
He and his troops fought with their usual tenacity and skill at Leipzig, holding key villages on the southern front against the Austrian and Prussian onslaught. At the end of the battle, Poniatowski commanded part of the rearguard. But their only escape route, a bridge over the Elster River, was blown up too soon. Badly wounded, Poniatowski tried to escape by riding his horse across the river, but he was swept from his saddle and drowned. He had been a marshal.
Told you he was drowned.
Swept from his saddle and drowned. He had been a marshal for just 4 days. In the short term, Poniatowski's loyalty to France achieved nothing, as following Napoleon's defeat, Russia occupied Poland for the next century. But Poniatowski's legend lived on, a model of Polish patriotism that inspired future generations. Marshal Jourdan.
I like Marshal Jourdan because when you play European War 6, that's the general you get, like for free. The first is Clinton, then you get Jourdan. I know he battled in the Americas, like in the American Revolutionary War. It's not American Independence War. I'm mixing the wars. And I know he fought with Napoleon, and Napoleon thought he was very brave and courageous. That's the most I know about Jourdan. I don't know much about Jourdan, but for him being in the position 19th is because he's good. I know he did some heroic feats, but I don't know much about them. Let's see what they have to say. I certainly use that man very ill. You certainly did, Napoleon. You certainly did. You're a true patriot, and that is the answer to many things that have been said about him.
As a young French private, Jourdan saw combat in Georgia during the American Revolutionary War. But he then caught a fever that led to his discharge and plagued him for the rest of his life. When the French Revolution began, he was elected captain of his local National Guard unit, fought at the battles of Jemappes and Hochschutter, and was rapidly promoted to general. In 1794, he made his name defeating coalition forces at the Battle of Fleurus. This was a crucial victory of the Revolutionary War, which handed France control of Belgium for 20 years.
No, it was the Battle of Fleurus. Okay, Jourdan. You're doing something important.
It was also notable for the...
Oh, it was him. It was him who used the balloon to win a battle. I knew that when Marshal of Napoleon had used the balloon to win a battle.
France control of Belgium for 20 years. It was also notable for the French army's use of balloon reconnaissance, the first effective use of an aircraft in military history. Jourdan became a prominent politician under the Directory, lending his name to a law that formalized France's policy of mass conscription. As a committed Republican, Jourdan refused to support Napoleon's coup of 18 Brumaire, but his fame as the victor of Fleurus was enough to ensure he became a marshal in 1804. Jourdan was on good terms with Napoleon's elder brother, Joseph. When Joseph became King of Spain in 1808, Jourdan went with him as his military advisor. But the situation in Spain would prove beyond Jourdan's military skills to solve. He faced stubborn resistance from the Spanish and Portuguese, supported by the British, and an equally
This is about the siege of Zaragoza. It's the priest with the cross killing some French. What an epic! What a chant! This priest is a chant.
stubborn refusal to cooperate from other French marshals in Spain, theoretically under Jourdan's command, but who repeatedly ignored his orders and openly questioned his competence.
Soult, I really thought... No, we already talked about Soult. Have we talked about Soult? Soult sucked. He was one of the... He was part of the second main reason I talked to you about of Napoleon losing Waterloo. The only thing he knew to do well was pillage. He was the master of pillaging. He pillaged paintings in Portugal and Spain. But then he lost battles because he didn't know what to do. He just knew how to pillage.
Marshal Soult in Andalus.
He even failed to siege Cadiz. Who fails to siege a small city like that? Who fails?
Thea was a prime offender, while Marshal
I told you, Soult sucked. I told you.
Victor's insubordination at the Battle of Talavera contributed directly to the French defeat. Struck by another bout of ill health, Jourdan went home to recover. 2 years later he returned to Spain, but at the Battle of Vitoria in 1813, he and King Joseph were outmaneuvered and decisively beaten by Wellington, leading to the collapse of the Bonapartist Kingdom of Spain. Jourdan never held a major command again, but his 20 years of service and evident patriotism were widely recognized and respected. He was made a peer by Napoleon, a count by Louis XVIII, and died in 1833 while serving as governor of Les Invalides. Perignon, Brune, Serrurier, Kellerman, Grouchy, Moncey, Poniatowski, Jourdan. 8 down, 18 to go. Join us for part 2, when we'll continue the countdown. Coming soon. Thank you.
8 down, 18 to go. So guys, this is where we will end our part here. So, Jim, love to be here with you. Thank you so much for your support. I love you guys. You have been supporting me so much. Leave your like, subscribe if you haven't. Share the videos with your friends. I know a lot of people who will be interested in the types of videos, so don't be afraid to share them. Comment down below your suggestions and, well, check the link in the description if you want to know more about Napoleon. Also check the videos in the end screen. You might like some of them. Yeah, I have a lot of chess videos, so yeah. Stay safe, stay well, and I will have to say goodbye for now.